All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of Wise Words Book Summaries. We are doing the second part of Good to Go by Christie Aschwanden, I think it is.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I think just before, at the end of our last one, we finished with like calming the senses. And I think now we are going on to the rest cure. So all about sleep. I think
why not? Have we done any books on sleep before? Because obviously we read Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, but I don't know if we've ever done a book summary podcast on it yet.
It's a good point. I have a feeling that we recorded one and it was like it was at the very beginning. We didn't really have much structure and it was like very kind of complicated. And so I don't know whether we actually ever aired it.
Okay.
We should get around to it at some point. Maybe during this whole health bit that we're talking about.
Yeah. The only reason I brought that up is because I was thinking if we'd already reviewed that and somebody listened to that in advance, they would kind of know everything we're going to say in this book as well.
Yes.
Where essentially in this chapter, she describes sleep as probably being the most effective recovery tool you have in your toolkit, especially in comparison to some of the other stuff that she's kind of declared in this book as a faddish or whatever you want to say. But yeah, basically the benefits of sleep cannot be overstated. It's hands down the most powerful recovery tool known to science. Nothing else comes close to sleep's recovery enhancing powers. You could add together every other recovery aid ever discovered and they wouldn't stack up. I mean, she's really laying it on thick here.
Yeah.
Most of the time when someone says they only need 5 or 6 hours of sleep, what that means is their ability to tolerate sleep deprivation is better than most, which I thought was quite an interesting point as well, because I know so many people are like, oh yeah, I'm fine off 5 hours sleep. I'm fine off 6 hours sleep. But the reality is, are you actually fine, or are you just used to your baseline, like low energy, if that makes sense? Like a baseline.
Well, so that's, I remember
recovery.
I think he talked about that in Why We Sleep, and that like your body gets so used to having a lack of sleep that it just moves its default, it moves its baseline.
Yeah.
And so like you just get used to acting at this suboptimal state. So you never even like experience this like, excess amount of energy or what are the other benefits that you get from sleep. You're constantly working at like 80% essentially.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's very similar to food and diet as well, I think, in terms of if you're eating a really crappy high carbohydrate, well, not necessarily crappy, but something which spikes your blood glucose levels high, and you sort of hit those sort of sugar drops, so to speak. You might live your life thinking, oh, this is the only way to live it. Like these, highs and lows, constant feeling of lethargy, like that's like a normal way to approach life, right? And that's kind of his point. The point. If you're not getting enough sleep, you might think that everything is okay and that you are getting enough sleep. But the reality is your like baseline feeling is just changed from what it could be to like a lower baseline.
Exactly. And these effects probably happen so incrementally that you don't realize the fall.
Yeah. I was even going to say one of the at least from my experience, and obviously we've spoken about this quite a lot, but with alcohol and hangovers, well, one of the main things it actually does is stop your, ability to sleep properly or deep sleep, right? And that's a fine example of how lack of sleep makes you feel. It's not just obviously the alcohol poisoning as well, but it's also to do with the tiredness. If that, that's like one of the most visceral ways, I guess, of feeling the lack of sleep or reduced sleep on your energy levels. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not just the sleep, but the sleep's one of the biggest things that's impacted by it.
Absolutely. It is there's just nothing that we've created that can that we can substitute for sleep. I mean, it always catches up with you at the end of the day, and because it's so important, sleep, right? So many it's just like it's crucial in so many processes that your body like uses. Every system requires it, and so if you just think that you're even a bit sleep deprived, I mean, like something that I found crazy was that if you've had in that Why We Sleep book was like, if you're awake for, what is it, like 19 hours or something like that, or 20 hours, it's the equivalent of like being drunk or having a certain amount of alcohol. And it's crazy because like most people are like that. And it's like, you know, they work a very long day, and it's just like, and then you're driving, or then you're operating on someone. I mean, like when he was talking,
that was it, wasn't it? Micro sleeps, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. Because you don't realize it. You're not consciously aware of like, you might be like sluggish, or you might be a bit tired, but you don't think it's going to impact your performance so much. But realistically, it is. Yeah.
I mean, she goes on here to say as well, like, you know, easy memory tasks you can probably get away with doing for 5 to sleep, like sleeping for 5 hours. But anything that requires, you know, complex thoughts, it's going to be a real struggle. And obviously, we're talking here in the context of sports as well. You know, there's obviously complex motor patterns, or whatever you want to say about it, that's obviously going to be impacted by a lack of sleep.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, by the way, this is actually it. By the way, I think this, just reading here, this is actually the thing you're on about, where it's like skimping on sleep is like turning up drunk. So it says here, skimping on sleep is like showing up to the game drunk. If you only get 6 hours of sleep, you double or triple your normal reaction times. And this was pointing to a study in which researchers subjected volunteers to either doses of alcohol or sleep deprivation, and then gave them a battery of tests on attention, reaction time, and sleepiness. The results showed that people who only spent 6 hours in bed were as impaired as those who consumed 2 to 3 beers. That's crazy. While 4 hours of rest was equivalent to 5 or 6 beers. And staying up all night was like throwing back 10 to 11 beers and then trying to function normally.
Fucking hell.
Crazy.
That is crazy, because also when you think about it, like, okay, alcohol is going to impair your body to some degree, but it's probably only going to impair like certain systems, whereas sleep is responsible for all those systems. So in a way, sleep deprivation is worse to an extent, because it's just responsible for so many, and it impacts so many different areas. It's kind of crazy.
I was even going to say, because do you remember in Metabolical? Have you finished Metabolical yet? Because I think, or at least I think it's in Metabolical, where he talks a lot about like, what do drugs actually do, and they like select specific pathways in your body, right? And they act on specific pathways in your body, but sleep is the entire pathway, if that kind of makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It is like a massive effect globally, rather than like a selective part. So it just makes sense that would obviously be one of the best recovery tools, rather than taking a drug or something, or doing something where you're taking selective pathways and trying to optimize them, whereas sleep's just optimizing it all. Well, not optimizing it all, but you know what I mean? It's like, or cleansing, or however you want to see it.
No, absolutely. It is just, it's like, I'm thinking now, like, you know, they say don't drink and drive, right? But like the next day, like you could still be drunk, but then let's say you're like, oh no, I'm feeling fine. I'm not drunk or hungover, but you could still be really sleep deprived, which is just as
which is probably actually why it's equally as bad and like hard to drive the next day. If you're on 4 hours sleep and you're drunk, that is a cocktail for, you know, a car crash.
Fucking hell.
And then it's got here, I quite like this point as well. So if you're ever forced between, you know, an extra shut-eye or an extra workout, it's wiser to pick the sleep, because if you sacrifice an hour of sleep to make a morning workout, it's quite self-defeating. And I can understand that now. You know, if you're going to make yourself absolutely shattered to make sure you hit your morning workout, you're basically jeopardizing the whole rest of your day's ability to, you know, cognitively function.
Exactly.
You know, it's one of those things, like, as we're going to get onto later in this book, of talking about, you know, trusting your own feelings, that if you're waking up, right, and you're meant to be doing an early workout, and you're feeling horrible, you're probably better off not going. Although obviously there's like this motivational thing where it's like, you should probably push yourself to do it. And obviously there's going to be some people who just can't discern between, you know, not feeling too great and actually just, you know, trying to get out of it.
I mean, it was like us when we went to the gym a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, you made, it's just horrendous.
God.
We went, but it probably wasn't the best idea.
Probably not. We probably didn't see any gains from that whatsoever.
That's okay.
So on to this next one. So don't over-fixate on the metrics of sleep. And I think this is a very big one. So measuring exactly how much quality sleep you're getting is difficult outside of a lab setting. Although lots of fitness trackers and phone apps promise to measure sleep duration and quality, these gadgets aren't very reliable. They claim to estimate deep sleep and light sleep, but there's no way you can do that unless you're measuring the electrical activity of the brain. And I think that is really, it's really important to understand this, because so many people have all these like smart gadgets, and you have to realize that what it's measuring is a proxy of the other things that it's measuring, right? That it wants to measure, right? It will say, this is your REM sleep or your deep, like the way that it measures REM sleep is by you not moving. So then sometimes it can make you think that you're sleeping even if you're not moving. Like, you could just be still. Or I think there's like new gadgets coming out where it's like a mattress, and it's supposed to be more in tune with like seeing whether you move or not. But once again, that's not directly measuring
that's only
how much REM and NREM.
That's only if that's a good representation of the actual RM or REM sleep. And the only way you can ever calculate, I guess, is by doing the electrical activity impulse and then also measuring at the same time the other things and working out if there is a correlation, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And then on top of that, it's like, this is one piece of the puzzle, right? Sleep is all of this. Sleep quality is not just NREM and REM. There's other things as well. There's like spindles and all this other stuff that's far too complex to talk about right now. But
I would assume the number of times you wake up as well could be, like number of times you wake up in a night as well be a big factor in your
amount of oxygen you're getting in. I mean, like all these different things, they all play an impact. They all play.
If you ate before bed as well, I assume, because obviously everybody says don't eat before bed. So there's loads of things like that, right?
Yeah, and so if you're focusing on one particular parameter and just saying this is whether I'm good or not, well, then you kind of fixate and over-fixate. Like people can over-fixate, and I think there's an actual term. I don't know whether she's got it here. I think it's like the orthosomnography or something like that.
Oh, is that the actual word for it? I was going to say something like quantification bias, but that's crazy. Is that somebody who's like obsessed with the science or the maths behind something?
Yeah, it was.
And they like seek to optimize everything. Oh, about sleep, okay.
I can't seem to find it.
So wait, is this a disorder that somebody has where they just want to sleep all the they want to,
but people get
they want to maximize their sleep, right? And they just get upset if they don't.
Exactly. Orthosomnia is what it's called. Okay. Yeah. So it's essentially, it's like people end up getting anxious and ironically have bad sleep about not getting perfect sleep, right? And it's this irony that's come about, and I think we will start to see it in a lot of other areas as well, where it's like we fixate on a number because we think that number represents the whole, and when we don't meet that, then it's like, fuck, this is my performance is really bad, and we start to internalize it all, and so a lot of people get like really stressed. And it's funny because like I remember showing Why We Sleep to my dad, and the thing, like Why We Sleep, it was a good book. It kind of like, it was like a mind-blowing book because not many people knew about sleep at the time. But I think a lot of the like studies or interpretations were exaggerated a little bit because it needed to be explained to like the average Joe who didn't know anything about sleep. The issue is that the average Joe then took that as like, okay, I need to aim for 8 hours sleep, otherwise I'm going to get dementia. And so then like, loads of people like started getting anxious. And I told I gave my dad the book and he started getting anxious. I was like, look, this is all just a guide at the end of the day. It's not like you have to do this, but it's like something that you should aim for. But you shouldn't get worked up about it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I remember I sometimes get into like a little rut. When you're just like in bed and you just know you can't fall asleep. There's something like you're feeling tired, but you can't sleep. I used to get super anxious and be like, for God's sake, like I'm not going to get my 7 hours sleep or 8 hours sleep. Now I kind of embrace it. I try and like I'll read or I'll do something which is I'm just going to make the most of it and I'll just lie in tomorrow. I appreciate that maybe that. Not everybody has the option to lie in the next day, and obviously if they got work and stuff. But obviously fretting over it's not like the it just makes it worse. I've always thought it's harder to sleep if I'm constantly obsessing over like, fuck, I should be trying to sleep right now. And I quite like this next point. She mentioned something about I can't remember exactly who Bender was. Did it say here? But he's like a sports coach. Like I'm hoping it's like that.
Who is this Bender?
Anyway. It's the guy's name, just to clarify. Anyway, he's saying fixating on one night's poor sleep is unhelpful. But he tells athletes, so he's obviously like an athlete, sports coach, like sleep helper or something like that. He tells his athletes to think of their sleep in terms of a weekly budget so they don't stress over a bad night. And I thought that's quite interesting. If you've got a bad night's sleep, it's, you're going to make it up over the next couple of nights. And the reality is you probably will, because you feel so tired. It's a bit like with, when you go out drinking one weekend or whatever, you get a hangover and you're really tired. That next night, you're going to go to bed earlier because you're so tired. And your body does, it's got its own mechanisms to sort of fix your problems, right? Like if you're hungry, you feel hungry. If you're tired, you feel tired, and you're more likely to eat when you're hungry, and you're more likely to sleep when you're tired. It's as simple as that. And I think over the long run, your body will try and compensate for what was lost. And it's just a case of, I had a bad night's sleep tonight. Okay, go to bed earlier tonight, last night, and go to bed early tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch on a point here that I'm so where he says the weekly budget. I think that's quite important, because I'm kind of drawing parallels with the Overcoming Gravity book that we'll summarize at some point. But he was kind of talking about, in terms of workouts, you don't want to go full out every single workout, right? You're not seeing progress just based on one day. And so it's better to space it over a whole week and try to, I don't know, reach your volume goal that you want to get. Yeah. And I feel like that's also the case with sleep. It's you wouldn't try to always go out every single, not go out, but as in go full performance every single day, because it would kind of wear you down. You kind of want to have a, zoom out a bit and be okay, I can accomplish this, but over a week, and I think that's just it gives you a different perspective on looking at things, because you don't, if you don't get 8 hours one day and you're fuck, I fucked it, God.
And it's once again, it's not that scientific, is it? It's not you have to get 8 hours to be the optimal. And to be fair, I think they even made some sort of point about, some people can actually be better off with less sleep. Obviously it's not, we did have the argument at the beginning about, you might think you're better off with less sleep. We're talking here the people who say they can function off 4 hours. That's probably not 100% correct, but there's a range of the range of the amount of sleep that the average person needs. And I've always thought your body will kind of let you know if you need that sleep. If you get what I mean? You're gonna feel tired, right? And you're gonna feel well rested when you've got enough sleep. It's pretty much as simple as that. And I quite liked his point here as well, which is talking about specifically on the context of sport, and maybe you're training for a competition, and he's saying something along the lines of, even if you've got bad sleep on the night before the competition, as long as you've made sure over the course of the week you've had lots of good night's sleep, you're going to be absolutely fine, which I thought was an interesting point as well. Because I feel what might happen with some people is, they're well rested going into their competition. The night before, they might get sort of stage fright, or, some form of nerves based around the race, whatever they're doing, and they might struggle to sleep, right? And his point here is being as long as you're well rested for the rest of the time, you should be okay. That's not to say staying up all night is going to help you, but if you get 4 or 5 hours sleep and it's less than what you're used to, you're still going to be able to function to some degree because you're well rested for the rest of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, sleep is a function that we all have, and everyone realistically does it every single day or every single night. But there will naturally, I think it will change depending on what you do during your day. Right. I mean, we all know that, if you've had a really fucking heavy workout that day, you're going to sleep pretty well. If you've done a lot of exercise or something like that, if you've worked a lot, then you're probably going to be a bit exhausted. And so your sleep is probably going to reflect that to a degree. I always find that, I have crazy dreams if there's a lot going on in my life, if there's a lot of chaotic stuff going on in my life. I don't know why, I just do. But
it's almost like a stress sleep, isn't it?
Well, I think
weird as it sounds, it's your body's just trying to mash together loads of shit because your brain's so busy. It's just let's throw it into a frying pan and see what happens.
But it's just funny because I wonder if you don't really do much during the day, whether you don't need to sleep as long, right?
Okay.
Because you don't have to process as much stuff. I don't know, but I would assume there is an element of sleep reflecting the context with which you are going into it, right? What have you done that week? Are you ill? Because if you're ill, you're probably going to sleep longer, right? Or you should. I mean,
we're completely speculating here, but I was wondering as well something along the lines of, obviously when you sleep, obviously it's I think the way he put it in Why We Sleep was something it's like a flush system for your brain, right? It's removing all the toxins that have been built up throughout the day.
Fluid,
or something like that. But obviously, other things take place inside your body, such as you can imagine something along the lines of your muscles are relaxed and maybe there's more repair going on. But then you could argue something like, if you were less active during the day, then you need less sleep to take care of that part of your body. If that makes sense. You've already relaxed them. I don't know. There's less to do. Who knows? It's speculative, but that would line into what you're saying there with some people. If you're more dormant throughout the day, would you need as much sleep as somebody who's really, really active?
Exactly.
Mentally,
or
physically.
Different systems are prioritized. Perhaps maybe you always sleep the same amount, but like different systems are prioritized. Maybe if it doesn't need to deal with muscles, it can go and deal with respiratory areas or something
like that. Exactly. Or maybe like if you're really you're really high like on using your brain a lot during the day, so just like really complex tasks, you feel like you're always using your brain. Maybe you need like a deeper REM sleep or something to process all that. Because I've always thought days, I don't know if you've been like really in the zone or like really using your brain a lot and you feel really like cloudy or however you want to put it at the end of the day. I've always thought those are the days when similar to what you said, where you dream a lot more or you have stronger dreams at least. So there's got to be some sort of correlation there, but that's purely speculative. And then funny enough, I've got here the power of naps, because I've always thought actually quite a good way of curing something like that. So for example, if I have brain fog or I'm feeling just knackered, just to go lie down. And to be honest, sometimes I don't know about you, but it's not even sleep that does it. Just by closing your eyes and just lying down for 15 minutes, it somehow seems to do something. Yeah.
Well, there's that thing that Andrew Huberman always talks about. Is it? I can't remember what it's called. It's like some it's not sleep, but it's like meditation or like a kind of binaural beat thing that he talks about. And it's going to really annoy me that I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, it's essentially that, like there probably is this resting mode that you go into. You don't have to be asleep, but it just like lets your body kind of like recuperate a bit. Yoga Nidra, I think that's what it's called. He talks about that all the time. Don't know what it is.
Is it like a relaxed signal? Is it something because you're relaxed? It sends like a relaxed signal to your body, and then it makes you feel a bit.
I think
I don't know, because I feel like obviously during the day, if you're like bouncing between tasks, you got a lot on. It's just almost like stress, and then
I think it's a type of like. I think it's like a sleep kind of meditation thing. But apparently it's supposed to be effective.
I mean, it's the same as anything. I've always found as well, like, for example, if you're having a really intense day, sometimes even just going for a walk is really like re-energizing, because you're like
100%.
And I don't know whether it's just the oxygen or it's more that you're distraction free. You're kind of like outside of your life context of all the busyness, and you're kind of just like, it's a bit like why meditation in my head works, as well as the ability to just see thoughts as they come in and just ignore them. Because for me, that's kind of what a walk does. It's like resetting your baseline. Before it was like just cortisol everywhere, stress or whatever you want to call it. And then it's just like relax for a little bit, and you kind of feel more energized from it, I thought, at least.
100%.
No, this is pure speculation again. I'm just chatting out.
I think there generally there is
my own personal experience.
You should go for walks, especially in like nature. I think that does the trick a lot.
For sure.
So should we move on to the next chapter?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the last bit we were just saying about the naps is essentially just saying the power of naps based upon, what we just said about sleep. So it's becoming very popular with athletes and, people who work very long hours. Naps have become almost like sort of essential to getting back to top performance again, I guess, during the day. If you're like knackered half through the day, have a quick nap and then you're back.
Exactly. And if you are like an athlete that you're like consistently training, maybe it is worth, because you can't just wait until the next day to train. If you're training multiple times a day, it probably is worth, getting a sleep in. Just as we were talking about in the previous episode about like, there isn't a time window which you have to eat in, but if you are going to go and exercise later on, well, then maybe you should. It's just most people aren't professional athletes and have to train twice a day. But
you're right.
Okay, so on to the next chapter then. Chapter 8, selling snake oil. So the FOMO of nutrition. So when teaching his introductory nutrition course at McMaster University, Stuart Phillips asks his students if they take multivitamins. Most of them raise their hands, and when he asks why, they typically answer, to make up for what I might be missing. This fear of missing out, FOMO, is a key driver of the marketing surrounding sports nutrition products, especially supplements. The marketing emphasizes the message that you might be missing out. And once again, I think that taps into that same kind of psychology with a lot of athletes that we were talking about, as in like, you just want that tiny bit more, right? Just even if it makes like even a marginal difference. It's the same.
You want that minor edge,
like,
because
exactly.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's game theory, because they're thinking
out
that other people are doing it as well, you know. If it's like, oh, they're all doing it, they're getting the edge. If I didn't do it, I'm not going to have the edge too. It's like they almost copy each other based off that, you know. Some people who find they got like they start a new form of training, let's just say. Other people might watch them going, oh shit, like, why is he training like that? Oh, he's training like that because he's trying to get an edge. Next thing you know, they're all fucking doing it. I feel like that's actually honestly how all these things spread. You know, because obviously she's saying all this stuff about famous athletes using like infrared saunas with like no proof or whatever. It's kind of how it works. You see somebody else doing like, shit me, he's got the secret sauce, let's follow him.
They all roped into it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
It's quite funny. So Phillips explains that if your diet is generally healthy, you do not need to worry about taking special vitamins or nutrients after exercising. However, because most people believe that their nutrition is inadequate, supplements are marketed to exploit this anxiety. Although the CDC reports only refer to the minimum amount required for good health, athletes do not take supplements merely because they fear they may be deficient in a certain vitamin. Their aim is to become superhuman by optimizing their body's inner workings and enhancing their performance, much like doping, but legally. The idea that exercise creates extraordinary nutritional needs doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider that the body was made to move. Being sedentary is what throws our nutritional needs off kilter. Yet we are told again and again that our bodies need special nutritional coddling when they're active.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
This book links into Byrne quite well in that respect as well. He's a bit like, you know, our bodies are built to move, and actually most of our health problems are around not moving. And it's just funny how, we've come to believe that, you know, it does kind of make sense. They're like, right, if you're working out, you need to eat more, you need to consume more. That makes sense. But like the extra nutritional needs is not so much. But I feel like that, you know, they play on a lot of things, a bit like the electrolytes we discussed in the first podcast, where like, you know, you can visibly see yourself sweating, so you know you've lost electrolytes, or you know you lost some form of fluid, and then they're obviously telling you what you've lost in the fluid is electrolytes, which is essentially salts. And then it's like, oh, well, you definitely need to replenish them. Otherwise, if you don't replenish them, you're not going to be able to perform well. And it's like, if you just, you know, you're going to get enough salt from your diet. And funny enough, your brain, like we've been talking about on the side about the hypothalamus, will probably be able to tell in your blood, like, is there enough salt in the blood? And then it will just make you crave salty food, right? That's how your body's been operating all these years.
Or most of the time, it will just take that salt from other areas, as in
exactly.
We talked about, you know, it's got these balancing mechanisms.
It's got salt reserves, it's got like electrolyte reserves as well.
And you're going to have to really push your body through like a lot of exercise to get to a point where it drastically where it needs some external, I don't know, food or water to.
I was even going to say, think about like, what's the purpose of fat? Fat is literally storage of energy. That's literally its purpose. And like, even if you're at like 0%, like 5 or 0%, but like 5% body fat, you have enough fat to like fuel your body for like 3 weeks or something ridiculous, maybe a bit less than that. But like each pound of fat can like drive your body for way longer than you think.
Exactly. So like most of the time you're fine. It's just that people are preying on, I feel like the fact that people don't know about these things. And so they're trusting an expert to say that this is actually what your body is going through. And then someone's saying, well, then you should have this. You should have this product.
I just like always going back to religion in the past, but I always love the comparisons of like the scientists to the priests back in the past. Not because I distrust science, because I actually do trust science, but only when it's done correctly. And I find it funny how, you know, the modern day priests are the modern day scientists, sorry. And it's just like, you know, believe me, because I've got the word of science. It's no different from the word of God, really. If you think about it, it's just like this is the overriding authority. You have to listen. this is the truth kind of thing, I forgive your sins. Oh my God.
And then once again, it like creates that society where everyone is roped into it because other people are doing it, right?
It creates like a runaway sort of game theory effect where like everybody's trying to hit that edge or something, especially in the sports industry rather than the individuals. Nobody else can like, oh, I've got more vitamins than you, But in the sports industry, it's very much like I need to find a way to shave this much time off my performance. Everybody's using this supplement. If I'm not using this supplement, I'm obviously missing out. And actually, in some ways, it can actually be detrimental. Remember, I can't remember if we talked about it in the first podcast, but I think we did with the overhydrating. Where like actually hydrating too much is actually dangerous for you. Is that type of thing? Maybe overdosing on, even protein, for example. You might just take too much in and then you're just peeing it all out anyway, you're wasting it. Yeah, exactly.
Kidneys get damaged, absolutely. It's just, I tell you what, I think a lot of this is kind of rooted in this. I feel like we're constantly bombarded with this message in the West because we're capitalist, but like that you have to be fucking ambitious, but not just like ambitious, but like really fucking ambitious. You have to be the best of the best if you're going to do something. And like, I think competition is good. Competitiveness is good, but then sometimes it can be to your own detriment if it's like you're going through everything just to get that tiny little bit more. Now I can understand it in like sports because it's almost the only kind of area where that makes sense, right? Because the differences are so marginal. But, for the average person going to the gym, half the time they don't need to take any of this stuff because their body is so well equipped to deal with it. I mean, we're literally designed to do a lot of physical activity. It's only when you're pushing past that boundary into those kind of like upper ecolons that it really makes a difference. So it's like, the fact that so many people take all this stuff. It's like they take all this protein powder, they take all these supplements, and it's just like, it won't make a difference for you. You're not, most of the time you're not really doing something where you need to be that ambitious.
I guess also that there's an argument to be had, I guess, where the vitamin stuff in particular, maybe, and less so for sports people, actually does take a big or has a big impact when somebody's diet is so, when they're so malnourished through their diet, right? And this is kind of where I guess their angle comes in. And the angle has always been like, if you're not eating 5 portions of fruit and veg, then you probably need vitamin tablets. But I actually would probably argue it's not, you probably just 1 portion of fruit and veg will probably carry a lot of the weight. At least my understanding, I don't know, do we constantly use, they didn't talk about it in the book, but do we constantly use up our vitamins a bit like we use up our carbohydrates? So like the function of them in metabolism, I can't remember if we use them up. For example, obviously we use up carbohydrates, which is what we eat, right? We use up the protein. Do we use up the vitamins? I thought the vitamins helped facilitate specific reactions, and maybe they do get used up in the process too. I assume they do, because obviously you wouldn't need a consistent flow. But my thoughts were maybe you don't need as much. I mean, obviously the doses of the vitamins are so small in compared to like obviously the amount of carbohydrates, right? So it's like, do we need as much as we're being told we need?
No, it's true.
And how do they work that out? Like, I need to know how they work it out. Like, that's why I need to see. I need to see the science and the explanation for how they actually work out how many vitamins we need. Because otherwise, it could all just be a scam, realistically.
But also, what type of vitamins? I mean, like, surely there isn't just like vitamin B, C, and D that most people take. I mean, realistically, there's probably like 100 or some shit. Now, you're not going to start taking 100 supplements because.
Well, some people do, genuinely.
Yeah, but exactly. So, but then how do you figure out, okay, which ones you need or which ones you don't need, which ones you're lacking, which ones are more prevalent? Like, the issue is, and then it all comes down, like, and we'll talk about this in Metabolical, but that some foods, the vitamins in them are extracted and then sold separately. So it's difficult to. I think vitamins is a very difficult like area because it could go one of two ways. It's like you're probably getting all the vitamins you need from a normal diet, but then it depends on how your food is being processed.
I feel like it's been left very ambiguous almost, because then you're left with a confused state of people who then think they do need it. Do you get what I mean? Like if it was very clear,
or it's like better than nothing.
Yeah. If the guideline was very clear and like you're going to get it through your fruit and veg, don't worry about it. But it's never been like that. So I've never ever heard anybody apart from in this book say something along the lines of, if you eat a varied diet, you're going to be fine for your vitamin intake.
Yeah.
And we're forever being like, scaremongered, like, oh, don't eat enough fish, you're not going to get your omega-3s. Don't eat this, you're not going to get this. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's forever being bombarded into us that, we're just basically malnourished all the time. Yet, I'm here. Like, in fact, we're all malnourished, yet everybody's really fat. Like, I mean, I think that's like it's a form of malnourishment, to be fair. It's not proper nourishment, but, we're not all dropping dead, but then arguably some people are.
More people are obese than ever, aren't they?
Yeah. But whether or not that's vitamins or as we're talking up the other books, whether it's the fat, whether it's the sugar, whether it's the brain causing you to overeat, there's loads of different explanations which we can all get into in future books. But so let's continue. So I think the next part was particularly interesting. So the International Society of Sports Nutrition. So Jose Antonio is the CEO and co-founder of the International Society of Sports Nutrition and an editor for the Society's journal. He is a renowned supplement guru and stand-up paddleboarder based in Florida. He has worked for several companies in the supplement industry, written multiple books about supplements, and previously served as a science editor at Muscle and Fitness magazine. According to Antonio, the supplement industry faced considerable skepticism from the research community 20 years ago, as supplements were considered snake oil. However, instead of attempting to convince the academic sports scientists, Antonio and his associates formed their own field of research by creating their own research society and academic journal to establish legitimacy. So this is just interesting in the fact that, renowned scientists aren't giving you any sort of credit, so you create your own thing, which is is sketchy. But at the same time, I can understand why you do it, because if you're working in a different paradigm, as we know from reading the books around scientific paradigms, and like the so-called old guard don't believe what you're saying, and you truly believe what you're saying, the best way to do anything about it would be to set up your own, scientific journal, scientific research, etc. Right? So while presenting a lecture on supplements, Antonio and his colleagues faced criticism from some audience members who accused them of promoting quackery without any evidence to back up their claims. Despite the pushback, Antonio and his colleagues believed that very few people had genuine expertise in sports nutrition, and that there was a need for a group that would support their interests and knowledge in the field. Consequently, they formed the ISSN as a rebel group that would challenge traditional academic societies. And to be honest, once again, I can actually see there's always this balancing act with what was once established vs the new establishment kind of thing, of the new paradigm, as we just said. So I can kind of see why they do this, but at the same time, when people are saying skeptical things, you still have to listen to why they're skeptical, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So Antonio asserts the ISSN has been instrumental in legitimizing the use of sports supplements and the field of sports nutrition. Prior to 2000s, journals were hesitant to publish anything that suggested supplements might be beneficial, but the ISSN created its own journal and as an outlet for supplement studies. Antonio describes the ISSN as a speedboat compared to other academic societies, which he likens to paddling a dinghy across the Hudson Bay. But there is an argument to be said, so when I hear that a little bit, I think, okay, fine, I get why he's done it. But at the same time, research shouldn't be done too quick. I'm always complaining. It literally can't be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was there. I'm always the first guy to complain about they take so long to bring across new medical studies. But the reality is the reason why it takes so long is to safeguard. And him sort of saying it reminds me of the Zuckerberg software thing where it's move fast and break things. And it kind of just reminds me of, it's just not the right approach when you're putting shit in your body. So it does make me kind of, really worry a little bit, especially as we go on in a second to talk about how none of it's actually regulated either. It's slightly skeptical. And the guy's like, right, everybody's doing this research stuff so slow. So what we'll do is we'll do it rapid, really quick, probably find, controversial results or whatever, but we're just going to go really quick. So it doesn't matter.
And I think an issue with this is that, this guy's not a researcher. He's not a scientist. He's a CEO. Right. So the fact is that he's the one who's pushed it. Well, who pushed a lot of this, sped it up. He's a businessman, right? Yeah. And
what do businessmen do?
They
build businesses.
I can very much understand the idea that, if you're operating in a different paradigm, people aren't giving you the time of day to listen to your arguments, and absolutely fine. I think you do need to kind of build up some kind of establishment to try and show the legitimacy of your research or whatnot. But if that's built on faulty ground with the intention to make money because there's ambiguity around something, then.
And I was going to say, you build it on the terms of or their terms. So one of their complaints, right, when I was just saying that was they didn't have enough evidence. So you prove them, you show them the evidence, right?
Yeah.
If that was their criteria for the truth, then you show it to them, right? Not insult them, create a new thing, which I do. Like you said, the new thing's not the problem; it's the way he's approaching it. Anyway, besides that, that's just to say that he's the guy who's come up with the way. And then the next bit is just beautiful. So what does Antonio recommend? So I believe the author interviewed him or something, right? Or something like that. Anyway, so when Jose Antonio was asked about his recommended supplements for recovery, he emphasized the importance of sleep, noting that there is extensive data supporting its restorative effects. He also advised consuming 20 to 40 grams of protein after exercise. I wonder where that came from. After replenishing muscle glycogen with carbohydrates if you're an endurance athlete. Antonio believes that sticking to these basics is sufficient for most people. But the problem is many people struggle to eat, to even do that, which is kind of what we were saying before, where it's like, if people aren't eating the correct diet, I can understand the logic behind it. But surely the quicker fix is to get a complete diet. Do you get what I mean? Surely the quicker fix
I guess it's coming from like if you're the producer and you realize that everyone should sleep and just eat a normal diet, but if they're not, then there's room for a product to fill that gap.
Yeah.
Like it's a chicken or the egg. Like what comes first? Do you produce a product that says that you don't need to eat a full diet and get all your sleep, or is it the other way around? But like I can see it from like a business perspective.
There's going to be a market there, isn't it? Of course there's an opportunity there because there's a bunch of people who want to be healthy but don't have the correct diet, and therefore we're going to give them the stuff which is quote unquote healthy. According to Antonio, people often seek a secret to success when it comes to recovery, but his advice is to focus on the fundamentals: training hard, getting adequate sleep, eating well, and repeating this regimen consistently. It's just, I just find it funny how the guy who sells supplements for a living, his advice doesn't revolve around supplements.
Really
it's classic, isn't it? It's like when I don't know if it's true or not. There's like a thing about Steve Jobs who, with the iPhone, never let his kids have one or something like that. It was some equivalent. It was like the CEO of a company never let their kids actually have the product he created. And there's something to be said for like, if you're not drinking your own Kool-Aid, like you're not drinking or you're not eating the thing you cook, have you poisoned it? Like, it just makes sense.
Absolutely.
But so now moving on to the sort of the problems with the supplement industry, which I thought was particularly interesting. So the first part, as we've kind of discussed here, so they're incentivized by marketing more than truth. So here we go. So you got Antonio suggests that when a supplement manufacturer makes a claim, you should ask them for the published science on their product. If they cannot provide it, it does not necessarily mean their product claim is wrong. However, it indicates they have not taken the time to fund the study to back up their claims scientifically, which is a red flag. In an ideal world, science is supposed to pursue truth and follow wherever the evidence leads. However, in practice, studies may be used as marketing tools by designing them to support claims. That is the problem with many supplement studies, which are not scientific searches for truth, but rather a way to market their products. Similar criticisms have been made of trials sponsored by pharmaceutical companies, which is why clinical studies must follow stringent rules, which as we'll find out, the supplement companies don't have to follow. So
exactly.
Researchers running drug studies in the United States must now register their plans and protocols in advance at clinicaltrials.gov and report and share all of their findings, regardless of the results. So 2015 analysis revealed that after the launch of this protocol, so clinicaltrials.gov in 2000, the proportion of trials showing a positive benefit dropped significantly. Before 2000, 57% of large randomized controlled trials sponsored by the National Heart and Lung and Blood Institute showed positive results, which I thought was crazy how like they've now reduced the amount of positive results because they can't fucking hide them. So no such regulations or standards apply to nutritional studies, which means that supplement companies and the researchers they fund can look for positive results until they find the results that they are seeking and bury the negative ones. Null results which do not demonstrate any effect from the supplement can also be hidden away in a file drawer. Which I thought was really, really interesting. And it makes sense. Anything you do scientifically should be available to be seen, even if it shows nothing, because then we can criticize the design. You could be like, oh, well, actually, the design's not bad. But if it's just because it doesn't show the result you want, you can't just hide it.
No, but this is a massive issue with science, and you do have this thing called the file drawer. But it's like realistically, any journal that's going to publish something is going to be a new, interesting finding, right? It's not going to be a replication study that says, yeah, we found exactly the same study, the same result, or that it's not significant at all. And I think that there's like a fundamental issue with the fact that you can produce a product probably much quicker than you can a scientific study, right? And so you could produce this at a much quicker rate. And if what product you're producing doesn't have to be held accountable to a certain extent by safety regulations or whatnot, that it's hard to control it. And so there's going to be a backlog of oh yeah, we'll get around to checking that product and seeing whether it's safe or not, but we've got all this other shit to do, right? And then in the meantime, those people that are creating the product can do specific research on that one product until they find a positive, significant effect, and then be like, look, we've already done it. This is what it says. So it's
not even just that, and also the more studies they do, which backs up their claim, which they can probably, once they start realizing maybe the things that cause the scientific study to show these results, they can repeat them. And then obviously in a court of law, you can be like, what's science? They'll be like, I got 80 studies to prove this is true.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what about all the 120 you disposed of? But they don't have to show that because it was never brought to the forefront. I'm not saying this happens, but it's just like, you can see how this might happen, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not far-fetched to say that this might go on when, people's livelihoods, people's business, people's success is built off this. They will need a way to, promote scientifically and legally. Because in my way, it's like a way of backing yourself up in a legal court. Oh, I've got 10 studies. Oh, wait, who funded them? Oh, me, but it doesn't matter because it's 10 studies. You have how many? 0. Oh, well, I got the truth because I've done the studies. It's like, and obviously people who are in a court of law aren't there to read scientific studies and understand how things can be gamed, how design of scientific studies can be, played to show certain results. So it's funny, isn't it? It's like, it just makes you skeptical. It's just,
there just probably aren't enough kind of third party researchers who would also be interested or available to research that product, right? I mean, because if you're paying for your own, but that's the thing, is like, if you're, there's no money for it. And even if they were to be even if they were to be given grants, the fact is that once again, there is this fucking huge amount of products compared to the amount of researchers available. Those people probably don't want to be looking at that, and they want to be focusing on other stuff. And plus, there's not enough money in it. So,
realistically as well, anybody they pay to do a study is going to obviously want to show them positive results, because otherwise what's the point of fucking paying them?
Yeah. And that's the thing.
And then
you're going to have
the
this
only other person
party
who could possibly fund it would be the government, and they'd have to have a sniff. They'd have to have an inkling that this person was committing massive fraud to then want to go in and study it. And then it's the classic, it goes back to game theory. Is it worth their time? They're fighting all these other different things.
It's not. It doesn't. They don't care.
Exactly. They just
In fact, they care probably more about it the other way, because someone's probably lobbying them.
They're only once again, most things people only care about once it becomes public conscious knowledge. If it the horse meat scandal, but nobody gave a fuck about it until everybody knew about it, and then everybody has to fucking do something about it. The government has to do an investigation because it's been found out. It's almost literally that. It's almost like the world revolves around lots of sketchy shit, and then the government or something finally comes to light, and then all of a sudden it becomes an investigation. But until it comes public knowledge, it's all just sketchy.
Until it threatens someone's reputation who has high authority, then nothing's really going to be done. No one will care, or that it will lose a lot of money. Yeah, that's literally power of money.
Deep down the rabbit hole. So, predatory journals. Do you want to take the next bit?
Yeah, let's do it. So the peer review process implemented by most journals aims to eliminate studies that are too flawed to provide substantial information. However, the competition to get published in high-ranking journals is intense, and some journals may appear to be legitimate but do not subject papers to rigorous scientific standards to peer review. Under such circumstances, researchers can manipulate their study to obtain the desired outcome and can easily get their scientific proof published by submitting it to one of these journals without the need for peer review, as long as they are willing to pay the publishing fees. Moreover, if the study does not yield the expected results, it can simply be abandoned. Between 2012 and 2017, Jeffrey Beal, a librarian at the University of Colorado, maintained a blog that listed predatory publishers. Although he shut down the blog in early 2017, he published a paper that shared his findings. According to Beal, predatory publishers pose the greatest threat to science in 21st century. They jeopardize research by failing to distinguish authentic science from unsound science, allowing counterfeit science like alternative and complementary medicine to masquerade as genuine science, and enabling the publication of activist science. Oh, it just makes me sick actually reading that. It is the most kind of like demeaning thing to its actual cause, right? Like you're talking about, you're a scientist, and yet oh God, it's so bad. It's so wrong. Oh God, I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sketchy, isn't it? But it doesn't surprise me that all these things exist. No, it doesn't. Once again, because there's a market, it facilitates what people want, and that is literally what a market is. So what do people want? How do I facilitate it? You know, you're always gonna. Why do black markets exist? Essentially, it's just a word that we say because it's politically incorrect to do that thing and it's illegal, but it's still a market because people are there willing to do it, even if it's assassinations, even if it's prostitution or whatever. It all exists because people want it. It's it's a human problem.
God, yeah. I just don't know how, and I think we spoke about this in the last episode, but like if you were a scientist, I don't know how you could do something like that. It's just so against the very thing that you believe. I know they're not businessmen.
I honestly would say at that point they're more fraudsters than anything. They have zero disregard for they have zero regard for the truth. They just for them it's it's money, or it's whatever they get out of it. Yeah. Maybe some people. I think some people enjoy deception. Some people enjoy the thrill of taking people for a ride, because it's like the ultimate power. Like, I can control your reality. Some people get a kick out of it. I'm convinced.
I'd be interested to know what the journal fees are. How much they have to pay for it to the publishing fees. Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know, man. I wonder how many people are in that team as well. It's probably just like a classic. You just take a few pictures of people in coats, put it on a website. I'm an official journal, because it's all about optics. Anyway, we're doing so skeptical here, right? Let's go back. To be honest, it doesn't get any better, right? Who's regulating supplements? So the reason why the FDA cannot ensure the safety and purity of supplements before they are sold is due to the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which prevents the FDA from requiring manufacturers to prove the safety and efficacy of their products. Instead, supplement companies are responsible for ensuring the safety of their products, and the FDA can only demand a recall if they can demonstrate that a supplement is harmful. But when are they going to do that? When are they gonna ask? Anyway,
literally never.
Unless, of course, there's like a massive scandal, right? Anyway, efforts to grant the FDA more power to safeguard consumers have been thwarted by the nutrition and supplement industry, which spent $4 million on lobbying in 2014 and donated another $1.1 million to political candidates and groups. Despite the appearance of legitimacy, there is no guarantee that a product has been inspected by a regulatory agency when it is on the shelves. The FDA lacks the ability to monitor what supplements are being sold.
I mean, that's terrifying, isn't it? I mean, someone is just making a product and then saying that it does something. They may, like we just said, they may not be fucking scientists. They've just concocted some mixture of things and said, this is what it will do. And you have no idea.
Based upon loose correlation evidence, this might cause, we've done a study and people said they felt better after taking it. So it's good for you.
I mean, what is the difference between doing that and having it taking MD or something, and you don't know how it's been cut, right? I mean, literally there's not. It's just the fact is that you're getting one on a shelf, and which is supposed to be more healthy, and one that's from a drug dealer. But I mean, yeah, it's terrifying.
It's quite terrifying, I have to say. I mean, reading this book kind of opens your eyes, and it's similar with the metabolical stuff. It's all true when you think about it. Well, no, it's not all true necessarily, but it's all if you think about it a little bit, it's kind of that kind of makes sense. And then this bit I quite enjoyed as well. So proprietary blends. Some companies make copycat products that hide the amount of herb or vitamins actually present in the product by calling it a proprietary blend, which allows manufacturers to keep the amount of the ingredients a secret. The rule was intended to protect intellectual property. Robert says, instead, it allows manufacturers to pixie dust their products with ineffective doses and still get to claim they have the ingredient on the label. Robert suspects that the copycat products didn't contain much of the herb or vitamins, but who really knows? And this is so true. I remember when I was working at my last job at the SEO, we were talking with a bunch of guys with a CBD company, and they were basically claiming that nobody put a high enough dose of CBD in any of their products. And they literally went to an independent, who knows if they are, bearing in mind they sell this as a service, independent tester for how much CBD they have in their products. They have like a certified specific amount of CBD, but they're claiming that most people don't. And most people put the tiniest drops in and then just call it proprietary blend or whatever. And it's just so interesting that once again, good intentions, helping people, well, not good intentions, creating a capitalistic or a system which protects intellectual property has led to this, where people can now use it to game. And sadly, that's just what happens when systems are set up in a way where people can game it, because it just makes sense. I mean, see that even AG1, the athletic greens I bought, that's actually a proprietary blend as well. So I actually don't know what's in it.
Is it? Interesting.
Yeah, genuinely. And somebody was slating it a little bit, being like, hang on a second. I mean, obviously they're well funded and stuff, and they make a lot of money. So it's a bit why... they can kind of understand why you're trying to defend what you currently have in it, because if they made it publicly available, somebody would just do a cheap version because they're a luxury product. But at the same time, it's you're basically putting your trust in them then, because you have no idea what's in it.
And this is the thing, is you can understand why this rule has come about, or this law has come about, but also it's a double-edged sword to a degree. And it just means that there is a hole in the system that can be taken advantage of. And unfortunately, in our society, I think we tend to have a lot of predators that want to try and take advantage of those gaps, because it's there. I mean, you can cheat and not get caught. So why not, essentially? Yeah.
Well, I mean, once again, it's one of those things. I've always thought a lot about this, where it's we repeat habits, or we repeat things because we get positive reinforcement in the moment. People who do bad things because they don't get caught immediately can continue to do bad things without actually knowing they're doing bad things. And then they don't even think they did anything bad at all, because they never felt any pain related to the action, right? And that's...
they're so detached from it. And so many other people...
You can kind of understand it, right? You can kind of understand how you get there if you have a very relaxed conscience. Like they said, I remember in the evil books, it's how would you get people to create or to do monstrosities? You just let them sort of crawl their way and in self-justification do the rest. Can you remember how it was? Tiptoe their way down the line, and self-justification would do the rest. They didn't originally start out to be like this. I feel like it just started out and it's we'll just do this, we'll sell this product, and the next step is, it just carries on down and they justify it all the way. And obviously there's no punishment, there is no recompense until somebody gets caught out in the long run, which is why quite a lot of fraudsters and people who commit atrocities don't even realize they're evil until it all comes out to public knowledge, and they realize everybody thinks it's disgusting what they've done, and they're like, oh shit, nobody told me that while I was doing it.
And then the funny thing is that not much changes when there's normally one person that ends up being the first to get arrested or whatnot, right? It's almost like a display of don't do this, and then people continue to do it again. I mean, just take what was it, have you seen The Big Short with the
I actually haven't, but I really want to. But I know
it's really good. But essentially, after the global bank crisis, the same thing just happened, but with different terminology, and everyone was still doing it again. But there was one person, one bank that failed. Was it the Lehman Brothers or something like that? It was as an example of not to do it, but then obviously it's never really enforced, and people just continue. So, oh God, what a pessimistic view of life. Anyway, moving on. So the magic of supplements. So why do so many athletes still take supplements if they are so unproven? Asks Catherine Price, author of Vitamania, a book about vitamins and supplement industry. We just want to believe in magic, she says. The supplement industry has been very successful in convincing us to believe in their products. John Swan, an FDA historian, notes that the growth in supplement use coincided with people taking more responsibility for their own health. These marketing messages, yeah, exactly. These marketing messages tend to resonate with people. It's tempting to think that something as simple as a pill or a shake could provide us with an extra boost. With scientific sounding claims backed up by marketing, these messages can seem both plausible and powerful. It's not surprising that snake oil salesmen have been successful for centuries. People are eager to believe. Yeah, it just, once again, it's preying on that conscience, that idea that, you know, we could get a tiny bit better just by taking this pill or taking this shake.
Also playing on the anxiety of like, you're not doing enough. So a bit of both. Is either the pictures either optimize, or the pictures like make up for the fact that you're chronically ill, you know, just like, oh, if you're not having this vitamin, you're going to die early or something like that. Or I know that's not exactly what they say, but yeah.
I tell you what's interesting is like the difference between America, the US and the UK, because obviously the UK has a national health system, whereas America, it's privatized. So you have to pay. So I can understand the idea or the concept of like taking responsibility for your own health more in the US, because it's fucking expensive if anything goes wrong. Whereas in the UK, most of the patients just seem to be people who have neglected their health. Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if there's like a difference in how people approach vitamins and shakes and things like that in the US compared to the UK, or how susceptible they are to these current marketing claims. I don't know. But,
we're going down. Sorry, my legs are starting to hurt. Right. Straight into it. Well, I was going to just quickly do the next chapter because I still want to very many notes. So the next chapter was called Losing Your Zoom, and it was all around overtraining. And to be honest, as we said before this podcast, you can basically summarize it with, you know, the solution to overtraining tends to be not training and getting some rest in, and listening to the signals of your body when you are overtraining. And that can be something along the lines of like chronic fatigue. It could be on the lines of, consistently performing worse, anything along those lines. But yeah, there wasn't too much to be said on this chapter, to be honest. Or at least that's from my notes, at least. But maybe that's because I was least interested in this part. And then we moved to chapter 10. So the chapter 10 was the magic metric. So this is all to do with signs of recovery, in which, can be, or we now like to think can be reduced to numerical form. So the amount of effort versus rest that athletes should apply is a constant concern. How can they discern whether their bodies are becoming stronger or if they're straining themselves too much? Is fatigue an indication that they need more rest or a sign of progress? Sand, who has spent 25 years monitoring gymnasts, discovered that athletes respond to stress differently. Each athlete's response to a new stressor is unique and can be displayed in several ways. For instance, what may be seen as a sore throat in one athlete may manifest as mood swings, soreness, or a headache in another. So although researchers have attempted to establish a precise metric to predict or prevent overtraining, it remains elusive. A single measure is challenging to interpret unless the figures are tracked regularly and over an extended period. Without a larger context, the numbers do not provide much insight. And I thought this is quite an interesting point as well, because it's like, you could take, a metric that you've done, a performance metric, and everybody's performance metrics are different, right? Because everybody has a different baseline, but because you give like an average of what you should be doing, it distorts it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's particularly interesting, that point that we all have like kind of different symptoms to overtraining. Like, what someone might have a sore throat while other people have mood swings. I think that's quite interesting, because then that highlights the fact that you can't just have like, this symptom equals overtraining or this symptom equals overtraining, because you have to have like a conglomerate, right? You have to have a number of them to actually have a better understanding of what overtraining is, because it will manifest differently in each person. It's taking into consideration the individual differences amongst us. Yeah, interesting.
Because it also reminds me a little bit of, I think it was on the Andrew Galpin conversation with Huberman, where he was talking about like if you get your blood test done and you're a really fit athlete, you would look like you're chronically ill or something like that. Because your blood pressure level is so low. I think it was something like that anyway. It basically make you look like you were a really sick individual, but it doesn't take into account that you're like a high performance athlete.
Yeah.
And I thought that's quite interesting because that also puts the number into a larger perspective. And obviously with stuff like blood tests, then it's actually what is better to do is obviously take multiple weeks and work out what your range is rather than your current.
Yeah, absolutely. You shouldn't have some kind of cross-sectional examination because on that day, multiple things could be distorting what your your blood test is showing. Whereas you want essentially an average, like you said. Talk about blood tests. So the next point. So although there is no clear-cut method for identifying overtraining syndrome, a growing number of companies are now providing blood tests to athletes who want to gain insights into their body's internal workings. While companies like Orico typically work with elite teams, others such as Inside Tracker or Blueprint for Athletes offer blood tests to any athlete seeking to take a selfie from the inside and learn crucial information about their health. God, I hate that fucking phrase. Take a selfie from the inside. God. However, some question whether these companies are approaching the issue correctly. Rather than examining overtraining syndrome and searching for effective solutions, they appear to be searching for new markers for existing technologies. This approach is similar to a drug company seeking the most lucrative problem to treat with their drug instead of focusing on a disease and finding the most effective treatments, which they do. Athletes' anxiety is driving them towards these tests. They fear not knowing if they are training at an optimal level. Athletes want to ensure they are at their best and don't want to wait until they don't feel healthy. The rise of an industry aimed at making healthy people anxious about their bodies seems to be a reflection of our current times. I think that's quite interesting. It's once again predicated, it's capitalizing once again on this inability to listen to ourselves, or say that you can't figure this out by listening to your body, right? You have to have some external means of doing it for you. We haven't been in tune with ourselves for the last God knows how many hundreds of thousands of years. This is funny. For me, it's if I'm overtraining, I see it straight away. Right? You feel it. You're tired, you're a bit exhausted, you're moody.
Yeah, you don't need a blood test or something. You don't need some sort of measurement to let you know that you feel like shit, right?
It's just so over the top, it feels. Maybe it's applicable to, high performance athletes, but surely also if you're a high performance athlete, you've done it so many times that you should be more in tune with it than the most people. You would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I wonder if it's a level of, because obviously when you do sports, you're being based upon numerical values of performance, right? Whether it's weight, whether it's speed. It's kind of maybe. That mindset of numbers is almost because numbers allow you to compare, right? In some way, right? They allow you to evaluate performance, right? So it's kind of that mindset has taken over with all aspects of performance. So we try to turn everything into a number, a bit sleep, based upon sleep time. But as we discussed, it could be sleep quality just as important as sleep time, right? You could spend a lot of time sleep, but if it's shit quality, I just feel like we've just become, it's the matter with things, it's the master and emissary type thing as well. We've just become so obsessed with quantifying everything that we've actually lost touch with the common sense,
Yeah, it's really just. I also wonder if it's partly based on when we're trying to observe ourselves and reflect on how we feel. It's normally categorical in the sense that I either feel well or I don't. Right? I'm happy. I'm sad. It's not I'm a 4 out of 100. Right? And I wonder if kind of talking about what you were saying with this kind of numbers attitude. For people who are so focused on getting that tiny bit better, even if they're not consciously aware of it, but if someone was you could be 3 points higher, and it's abstract and it doesn't mean anything. But for someone in that kind of world where numbers are constantly present and it means something, then I wonder if it's like, oh, well, maybe this will tell me that I'm 0.5 lower in this vitamin than this, it's just, whereas like most of the time it wouldn't make a difference. Right?
Yeah. Like it doesn't really make a difference, right? So in fact, on that note, I'm going to skip the next bit. So be careful of objective measures when recovering. So we often consider objective measures to be more reliable or scientific than subjective ones. If you want to determine the speed of a car, the speedometer provides a more reliable indication than the driver's subjective perception of the vehicle speed, which is kind of, what we're talking here is meant to be seen as more reliable than your senses, right? But okay, this is where it gets more interesting in my head, because the reason why senses are more reliable in this sense is because they bring in multiple variables and then create a sensation based upon multiple variables, to decide how you act. Whereas this is talking about like separate variables, which all actually influence the main variable, which is your feeling of what to do. So in fact, funny enough, what I just said. So however, recovery is a much more complex phenomenon than speed, as it is not a measurement of something the body is doing at the present moment, but a forecast of how prepared it is to perform at a given time. We would like to believe that hard numbers must provide the most accurate data, but it appears that subjective measures outperform objective ones when it comes to measuring recovery. So in 2015, Anne Saw, an Australian sports scientist, and her colleagues reviewed the published studies on metrics used to measure training load and response, from hormone levels to inflammation markers, blood cell counts, immune system markers, and heart rates. When they examined all the findings, they discovered that the self-reported subjective measures were superior to objective ones. What makes tracking data and data analysis, so alluring is also what makes it risky. It gives a sense of confidence that science is not yet capable of providing. The belief underlying the use of data to determine when to train and when to rest is that we comprehend the intricate ways in which the body processes stress and recovery, and how various workouts affect individuals. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Really, like we've kind of like once again passed off everything to this numerical god of like, just because we've got a number assigned to it, it's so correct. It's a bit like the sleep trackers, and we've forgotten really that the main point. It's just
it's really interesting.
Like, just so somebody could check my blood and be like, hang on a second, you've got like inflamed blood count. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's really interesting when that stuff can pick up things that you can't sense. So, for example, when it can pick up stuff like early stage cancer, right? Phenomenal. But it has a place. It doesn't have a place in recovery, basically, is what we're trying to say here, until, of course, we find out a better explanation for the way these signals, intertwine, to understand actually how they affect recovery, right? Because at the moment, as this study found, actually the best gauge for recovery is your feeling, which kind of just makes sense. If you feel like shit, you don't need your blood to tell you feel like shit. If your arms hurt, you don't need your inflammation count in your blood in your arms to tell you that, do you?
And also the consequences of overtraining are not like, unless you severely overtrain, aren't that extreme. Right. So you don't need all this extra stuff to be like, whereas like, if you could possibly have cancer, well, then it's probably worth doing a fucking blood check. Right here, you're basically just trying to figure out whether you should go to the gym again today or not. Like, it's so in the grand scheme of things, it's like, these little numbers, they're not really informing you that much in this kind of context, whereas others where it could potentially point you in the right, it might not, but it could potentially point you in the right direction, well then it's probably worth doing it. But with this stuff, I feel like it's kind of pointless. You should just be able to go off your subjective interpretation. So should I do listening to your body? So a native of Finland, Inkinen, moved to Palo Alto in 2003 and started doing triathlons in 2004. He calls himself an incurable data geek and says he loved the excitement of figuring things out regarding his training and performance. As a numbers guy, Inkinen wasn't just going to read a paper. He wanted to know how his body was responding. I need to get objective data that I'm super compensating and getting better every week, he says. After years of tracking all kinds of information about himself, he's concluded that the best algorithm for taking in all those data points is our own brain. The morning mood and feeling is probably the most accurate predictor of recovery. It factors in a lot of things: injuries, hormonal status, hydration, nutrition. In isolation, single measures like heart rate, HRV, or body weight only represent a single dimension of recovery, he says. Blood markers don't impress him. A single biomarker at any given point is meaningless. If you feel like crap, that tells you something. We're a long way from having a system of biomarkers that can surpass the human brain.
It just makes sense, doesn't it? Like,
it really does. I mean,
really prideful and like, you know, to think that we can even replicate anything like the human brain and that we can actually tell before it can, you know, what state we're in, you know, it's kind of crazy.
I mean, we're at the mercy of the tools that we use to measure and observe things. And at the moment, like, we have to like remember that most modern technology, I mean, like, the internet's only been out for 30 years, right? Like, so think about how young we are. We probably will get to a point where we have all these different tools. We can measure so many different parameters, and it's a really good reflection of whether you're overtraining or not, or, you know, whatever kind of thing it's trying to measure. But at the moment, we're very young, and the numbers, the confidence that we have in numbers don't reflect how advanced we are with technology, essentially.
For sure. No, I think that is the perfect way of putting it. And like, once again, it's just not even just the numbers. I think it's the explanation behind the numbers and why they matter. I think we think they matter for specific reasons, but we're being proven time and time and again to not truly understand it.
Yeah.
So yes, now we're on to chapter 11, Hurt So Good. So Christie has discovered that recovery aids exist along a continuum of evidence. At one end lies the most powerful recovery tool ever discovered, sleep, which is free. And at the other end are the faddish products such as hydrogen water, and oxygen inhalers that are mostly useless. Most recovery modalities lie somewhere in the vast middle, promising but unproven. Despite exploring a seemingly endless array of recovery aids, Christie found that research on most modalities is thin and incomplete. While some of them may work, it is difficult to determine their efficacy. When these aids do work, their benefits are typically small and do not add up to larger effects. Instead, the body seems to hit a capacity for improvement, suggesting that these treatments may be tapping into the same finite reserve. So then this is where it got quite interesting, and we were discussing this before, but David Martin, I think we mentioned him earlier, I think he's Australian. I didn't get the context of him in my notes, but anyway, believes that the mechanism behind these treatments may be the placebo effect. So he's basically arguing that all the reasons why some of these, you know, treatments such as the electrolytes, such as the infrared saunas works is through the placebo effect. So Martin, here we go, is an Oregon native and endurance athlete. Over the years, he's worked with elite athletes from numerous sports, including Cadel Evans, Australia's first winner of the Tour de France, and NBA center Joel Embiid. I think that's what it says. After decades of observing athletes and their habits, Martin has concluded that most popular recovery modalities work by exploiting the placebo effect. Despite this, he views it as an opportunity. This is real mojo, and instead of calling it the placebo effect, he prefers the term anticipatory response or belief effects. He uses these alternative names because people tend to dismiss the word placebo as a synonym for ineffective, which is also true. Because obviously when we say placebo, we almost treat it as like, it just doesn't work. But it's like, well, it does work because the belief makes it work, right? Or maybe it's not even the belief. Maybe it's just the fact that it does work and we can't explain it yet. Do you know what I mean?
Anyway. True.
So when in fact these effects are real, and in some cases can be as powerful as many drugs. The difference is that you're gathering up your body's own resources to create the benefit. The takeaway, Martin says, is that expectations can create real biological effects. It doesn't matter if there's science to back it up. If an athlete strongly believes that something works, the belief effect can overwhelm the real effect. Martin says, and the reverse is true too. If the athlete doesn't believe in the modality, its benefits will be diminished or even erased, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something in there. You know, if you believe that it's working, then fine, right? Like, you're probably, and I wonder whether you literally are improving or recovering at a quicker rate, but the fact is that you think you are, and maybe that's you know, that's all you need, really. Because I think there's a point in the book that I remember, you know, like, one of her friends was like, "Oh, I love this," and she was like, "I was going to correct her, but then what's the point, right? I mean, if it's working for her, why not just leave her to it?" I think there's something in that,
for sure. Then we move on to how the placebos may work in the recovery context. Christie has observed the tendency in people to dismiss evidence that contradicts their personal experiences. Surprisingly, in placebo studies, participants who receive a sham treatment don't usually feel deceived, for example. Placebos can alter how we perceive sensory input, which can make a significant difference. If you anticipate feeling less sore or fatigued, and after a massage or icing, for example, you may perceive your soreness as diminished and actually feel less tired. Many popular recovery methods seem to function as a kind of pacifier. Although they may not actually solve anything, they provide something to do while you wait for your body to heal itself, which I thought was quite interesting. Research indicates that humans dislike waiting and will be happier if they have something to occupy their time, even if nothing changes. As it turns out, people are happier when they're doing anything, rather than waiting. Stretching, icing, or foam rolling provide a sense of control and involvement, which studies suggest are active ingredients of placebos. And that's interesting because there is something to be said for like feeling like you're influencing the speed of recovery is bound to have a positive effect, because it's like, if you think about like the dopamine system and how, you've got a goal. I guess the goal then at that point is to recover the best you can, and you believe you're achieving that goal, you're going to feel good from the dopamine system based upon that. And therefore, maybe that's what influences your positive feeling. And it's not even the positive feeling of, recovery. It's the positive feeling of the dopamine system, like you achieving your goal because you're taking steps to achieve that goal, even if the steps are pretty negligible. But it doesn't matter because you believe those are the steps, right? Because that's how the dopamine system works, right?
Exactly. And I think that's really important because, let's say maybe your limbs aren't recovering at a quicker rate after having an ice bath or whatnot, But if you think it is, and that's playing a part in like your goal structure of whatever you're doing, then overall over all the different components of success that you could be improving at within that goal, whatever it is, maybe it's to be an athlete or whatnot, you are improving. You may not be improving in the biological realm, but like as in like literally in your limbs recovering, but you're improving in goal pursuit.
But exactly. You're feeling like you're making a step towards the goal, and that's all that matters.
Exactly.
Because if you feel like you made a step towards your goal, that's the subjective perception, which influences your feeling. And at the end of the day, your gauge of how you feel and towards that goal is going to influence your performance, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about like habits all the time. Well, let's say you are a professional athlete and you need to have these habits of rocking up and training all the fucking time. Well, if you have more of a pleasurable experience, then you're probably more likely to do it. So in a way, you are benefiting from it, just not in the particular way that a lot of these kind of, fads are saying how it improves, right? It's just in a different area. Interesting.
Yeah, that's quite a nice little bit there for us to think about afterwards around the goal system and placebos. I'm intrigued by that because obviously as we've listened to a lot of the Huberman stuff and around how like we almost create the reward structure for our goals through the dopamine system, like it's flexible like that. Therefore, it would make sense that you feel a subjective pleasure from doing active things towards your recovery if your goal is obviously to achieve peak performance, right? And that could be the thing that was, what makes people feel better, so to speak. It's just your dopamine motivation circuit coming in and being like, yes, you've achieved something, like you've done something good, like you stepped towards your goal. And that could actually be the thing that's actually improving here. And it's not actually their performance didn't improve next time, but their feeling that they had increased, and therefore they disclosed that they'd made progress, when the reality is they just technically slowed stuff down potentially if it's icing and that's true. It's crazy, and it's funny.
It's really interesting. And then it kind of, we could essentially tie in this next part. So the next bit is the 4 categories of placebo. So Chrissy kind of breaks it down into four categories, 4 groups based on their placebo enhancing characteristics. So the first group is the feels good category, which includes things that provide pleasure during and possibly after the activity. Even if it doesn't have any other benefits. The second group is hurts so good category, which includes things like icing that are painful but can create a sense of power and effectiveness. The third group is the it's working, I can sense it category of active placebos, which includes things like cupping that produce noticeable sensations and effects that aren't necessarily pleasurable or painful. And finally, the fourth group is the blinded by science category, which includes things like infrared saunas. These modalities appeal to people through jargon-filled scientific explanations that create a sense of futuristic power. I really like that. I think there's definitely something that you can implement from those four into, especially if you need to try and sell yourself on something, right? I mean, like, either there's a physical sensation or there's a bit of pain or there's a lot of scientific stuff, and you kind of emphasize that or enhance that to try and make it have more of an impact, essentially, right? You link that with a positive association, and then you're kind of winning. You're doing something that maybe you don't want to do, or
I think it's just quite interesting how it's always related to the sensations, like, if it feels like it's doing something, it might be doing something. So if it feels good, it's doing something. If it feels bad, it's doing something. And if you can just feel it, it's doing something. So basically it's all to do with sensation. Like, all of it's to do with like perceived like effectiveness through the fact that you can feel it on your body. You could even argue something like let's just say, God forbid, we all believe that somebody tickling you allowed you to recover quicker, and you could feel yourself, like it feels nice. You get what I mean? Like, you could easily, like, you can imagine some people like not falling for it, but like believing that, because it's like
you could easily say that like tickling like stimulates certain skin cells that creates better blood flow, right? There we go. Like already, but essentially it could do the trick. And this
is reasonable, isn't it? It's like you can actually reason and like create a logic flow that would make sense, like you're saying, because you're touching the skin, then the movement's causing some sort of cellular response underneath it. Next thing you know, your blood flow's going there. It's science.
This is what it is these days. But I tell you what's interesting is, like, there was a point in this book, and I've also read it somewhere else, I just couldn't remember, but it was talking about rituals and how you get a lot of professional athletes that all have like certain quirky rituals because they think that improves their game. Like, realistically, it can't, right? Like, you wear a particular pair of shorts or socks and you think that you're going to play better. Well, realistically, unless they're magic fucking socks, they're not going to make you play better. But if it does enhance and it does add to that kind of, it has that placebo effect, that belief effect, well, then who's to tell you that it doesn't work?
I think it's also a lot to do with control, in my head at least, without going too long on a tangent. But like, going through your routine gives you a sense of like mastery of your destiny, because you're doing it the same way, kind of thing. I don't know, a confidence building thing.
Yeah, maybe. Probably. That you have control over the outcome to a degree.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. And like, if you get thrown off and you don't do your routine, you feel like you're lost because you're like, shit, I didn't go through, like, I did that movement pattern, almost like gets you in like a zone, so to speak.
Well, it's funny because Skinner, BF Skinner, who basically was like, one of the pioneers of behaviorism. One of his things that he did is he'd get like doves, and he would they would go and like they'd step on a little lever to get some food or like a pellet or some water. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, they would do it, and they'd do it over and over again, and he would just do it randomly. But like when he would do it, the bird thought that it had to repeat the exact steps it needed to do to get that pellet of like water or food. And it's interesting that like we kind of do that as well. We like almost
through ritual, like you do, like through your routine.
Exactly.
You do exactly the same kind of thing, because it's the prediction of the reward. Like, you won a game because you did it, like, so you copy it the next time.
And you don't want it to be randomness. You want it to be like, well, there was a reason why this happened. There's like determinism to a degree, but interesting. So on to the last bit here. So these categories are fluid. What falls into the feels so good bin for one person might be categorized as hurt so good, or it's working, I can sense it, by another. I'm assuming ice baths are probably like that. Some people love it, and some people, it's painful. But the ultimate effect is the same. The modality has some quality that triggers an expectation that it will work. Recovery modalities can be seen as different expressions of a handful of approaches to recovery. These include methods that make you feel more comfortable, even if they don't necessarily have a physiological impact, establishing a ritual for self-care that fosters a sense of autonomy and self-efficacy, often perceived as being proactive, and creating a structured space to focus on rest. One of the key benefits of recovery modalities is providing athletes with a deliberate way to prioritize recovery.
That's quite nice fitting. Like they all do fit kind of into these broad buckets, of either making you feel more comfortable, making you feel more what's the word, like self-effort, like autonomous. That's it. Making you feel more autonomous and that you have control. Then one, obviously creating time for structured rest. It all kind of makes sense why they would all help. Part of it might even just be the fact that it helps you relax, right? And when you relax, you recover better.
Absolutely. And you're right, they are all kind of like visceral, apart from one which is like based on the scientific like marketing. But
we've always had that within us, like that sort of like wishful thinking and belief in higher authority. But then that's just what drives the placebo, isn't it? It's just like, it's they said it should work, so it's going to work. Like they do it, it works.
Yeah.
So we basically hit the end of the book. So at the end, the last bit, she kind of talked about her and the difference between her and somebody she used to go to school with or something like that, and their different approaches to training and recovery. And she basically says something on the lines of, if there's one thing Christie would tell her younger self, it would be to learn how to listen to her body and pay attention to its signals. Her susceptibility to injuries and overtraining hindered her progress, just as her aerobic capacity, long limbs, and fast response to training aided it. Instead of ignoring the signs of fatigue or discomfort, she wishes she had taken a break when her body needed it. For too long, her initial reaction was to ignore it and keep pushing. But in reality, what her body needed was rest, even if her mind was resistant to accepting it. So this basically was her just summarizing, saying that, if there's one thing she's learned from all of this is that, we should have more faith in our body and listen to the signs, and obviously there's this massive sort of, culture of do more, not even just exercise, do more recovery. Like you have to consistently be doing stuff. And I think her, sort of summary from all these, or trying all these different recovery techniques is kind of like, at the end of the day, it's all just about actually listening to your body and making sure you're getting enough rest. And if you need to do any of these, saunas, ice baths or whatever, do them, because it's going to be a placebo effect. It's going to help you anyway. Like in the end, she didn't really rail against it and say like, oh, that's unscientific, therefore it's not true. She was a bit more like, if it works for you, it works for you, but don't sweat the small stuff. Don't feel like you need to do all these things, and just make sure you get adequate time to rest. And it's funny, isn't it? It's probably the cheapest advice you could have given as well. You don't need to spend all this money on this stuff. You just need to put your head, put your feet up and lie down for a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it's also interesting to consider that, when she's talked about all these things, it's been in the context of recovery. And so, yes, maybe there are studies to show that it's not effective at recovery, but it could be effective at other things,
for sure.
And so, it's not saying like you should never go for a massage or you should never do this because there's nothing to it, because that's not the case. But it's just, her take on it in the context of recovery.
Yeah. In the context of like performance enhancement and like recovering for an event, etc. Right. But a lot of the stuff she was saying as well was like, some of these things do actually work in the context of, let's say you've trained this morning, you need to train again in the afternoon. Some of them actually are highly relevant for doing that. Like the electrolytes, I think she was talking about, was like, if you want to replenish them as quick as possible because you've got to train again, it makes sense to. But if not, you can wait to the next day. So
exactly.
It was a good book.
Well, there we are. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was a good book.
Really
We'd recommend reading it if if you're interested after this. But
it was an easy read.
Next?
It was nice.
It was an easy read. It was an easy read. A good read. An easy read.
Yeah. What is next? We could do Metabolical. We could do...
I think we'll just do it while it's quite fresh. I'm still finishing my notes on it. That could be like a fucking like a 10
I know, mate. I practically just highlighted the whole book.
Yeah, it's quite bad. So we'll see how that goes. So Metabolical's next, and that's all about the processing of food and what it's meant for health. What's interesting is because obviously some of the other books we've read all step on different areas. There's kind of like parts that cross over, parts that don't cross over, which is going to be really fun when we go through sort of like burn as well. We've also got the Why We Get Fat book, and the whole point of us doing this as a podcast as well is to go deep into all of these different books and try and pull apart, the things that actually keep coming up again and again. And maybe with those ones, you can kind of pull on a thread and figure out what's actually true. Because there is some conflicting ideas between all these books that I've noticed.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's kind of trained me to realize that actually, you can't just take what these guys say for granted.
This whole book was, a contradiction to the mainstream idea of it, wasn't it? It is interesting. And I think diet is even more controversial. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Right. Well, we'll catch you then. That's a wrap.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, well there you have it. We hope you enjoyed that book summary. Now we know it can be a lot to take in all at once, so if you want to be able to read this in a more palatable size, or you want to be able to implement any of those key actionable ideas that we were talking about in this episode, head on over to our website at wisewords.blog, where the book summary will be waiting for you. Also, don't forget to check out our socials as we consistently upload the key ideas, benefits, and actionable ideas from all the books that we read. The links to those will be in the description below. Now, we want to be able to get you the best content in a way that's really easy to understand, but we need your help. Your opinion matters. So you are our feedback mechanism. And with those quick actions, whether that's leaving us a like or a dislike, commenting in the comment section below, or subscribing to our channel, all of those help us gauge what we're doing well and how to improve on our method of delivery. So if you have any thoughts on the matter, don't hesitate to act. It takes less than 10 seconds and it really helps us out. But with all that being said, until next time, stay wise.